There's a huge thing going on right now in the information marketing space. I'm seeing a trend of people getting harder and harder on their refund policies and not offering refunds. That is a mistake. It is so difficult to undo those habits. And when you've built your business on certain methodologies of marketing, you've attracted a certain type of list, a certain type of customer. To undo that means you are going to have to shut down, rebuild. But in this particular case, the Weblio case, which is from the industry of business opportunity, they got a full-blown asset freeze. I mean, right out the gate. And that stuff is scary, guys. That means you wake up one morning and none of your money or assets are yours anymore. None of them. All right, welcome everyone to the first official episode that I'm doing with the knight in shining armor for marketers across the world, Mr. Greg Christiansen, who's here himself. He's actually wearing white too, so there you go, right? So what we're gonna do here, so you may or may not have seen episode 1. That was me telling my heartfelt story of being hit by the FTC and just what that was like. And I think it's I don't know. It's an episode worth watching. It was difficult for me to do, but I did it and tried to be as transparent as possible. We're going to try to film episodes for you. We're going to film episodes for you where we hit different topics every week. We track what is going on by the government regulatory agencies, not just the FTC, but other state agencies, and just letting you know kind of what's going on and giving you light and giving you hope and showing you how to do things compliantly and how to do them within the law. Most marketers, when they first hear us talk about this and they hear us talk about all the things you can't do, immediately go, what can I do? This sucks. I had the same reaction. I did. And I'm telling you, that's why my joke is I'm here to spread the good news of compliance, because I actually have started to unlock it and I'm seeing that it's absolutely doable. It's actually way better. But you're going to have to learn that over time. All right. So with that said, obviously the podcast is now out. If you're listening to this, every week we release episodes. We also release urgent episodes whenever something happens from the FTC. Don'tSayThat.com. This book is releasing on Feb 13th. You can go ahead and pop your name and email in for early notice, or the book's already out, to go grab a copy. And lots of other stuff. We're launching an association. We're launching a certification program. We're launching courses and academies and software and lots of really neat things. So watch everything here. But for today, over to the Guardian attorney himself from GuardianLaw.com. Greg, what's up? Question. I'm going to go right into it because time is of the essence. How the heck do you even fall into the grips of the FTC? I don't know yet. So I have no idea till this day. And I'm 18 months of investigation, negotiations, and settlement and done. They never told me what actually tipped them off. I can make insinuations and I can get clues from the things they asked me about. But someone who's watching right now who's not received any warning or any letter or anything, how does the FTC determine who to go after?
Well, there's a lot of different factors they'll look at, right? One is they have this national database that they look at called Sentinel, and what they do is it takes all of your BBB complaints, your AG complaints, and Federal Trade Commission complaints. They put it together, and so if there's a pattern that they see on a particular organization and it draws their attention, they'll start to do an investigation. And most of the time, these investigations are about a year behind the scenes before you even get notice of them. So the time you get a civil investigative demand or subpoena, they've been looking at your company for a long time. So I would say number one reason is complaints, but that's not always the reason. I don't think that was the reason in your case. That's why you're kind of perplexed, right?
So number one, complaints. You're right. I mean, I can't say that I don't know that it wasn't the reason, but here's how I would think the consumer mind works, and I built a company for that, was if a customer's upset, they message you, they ask for a refund. If you say no, they get upset, they do a chargeback. If they're really upset, they message BBB, and they get a BBB complaint in, and you get a chance to resolve that. I mean, in my opinion, I've always thought that they have to go quite the level to get to the FTC. I did not know about the Sentinel system. I didn't know that they don't have to actually complain at the FTC about you for it to be a lodged complaint against you. I did not know that there's an aggregated system that's working in the back end that tracks all the complaints of a company from BBB plus. But then, even then, we didn't have a lot of BBB complaints, relatively speaking, to like 63,000 transactions or whatever the number was we did. Can you talk about the Sentinel system, though? Because I don't think any marketer actually knows what the hell this system is. I didn't even know about it until about a month ago.
Well, it's just a database the FTC has access to. I mean, the BBB, the AG's office, the government and quasi-government, because the BBB is a franchise, it's not a government, but they have access to it, so they can go through and they can list, what the benefits are, the detriments of the different types of complaints. So it's a way for them to keep a pulse on companies that are getting complaints. So, I mean, that's just it. And
So
usually
is it mostly,
private.
what about, like, is this a, can I go in there and see what the Sentinel system says about me? It's a government system.
No, yeah, I know. I was about to say that. Like, I've always wished I could have, access to it, because how wonderful would that be for me to be able to, when a client, retains me for their services, to look at it and be able to see like kind of what the exposure is. But you can't.
Well, wait. What about the Freedom of Information Act? Can't I ask under that? No.
They will say that if you go to the FTC and you ask for the complaints that they have, then maybe they'll disclose that to you. But a collection of a database of complaints across the board, that's their internal investigation. And the Freedom of Information Act doesn't apply to investigative stuff, just so you know. And this is quite common in investigations that I deal with the commission and with regulatory bodies. The issue that I have quite a bit is I'll want to know the investigation file so I can figure out what they have so I can defend against it. And they will always, in court and otherwise, say, no, you can't have that, because it's their internal. It's like my work product for a client. They don't have to provide it. So they look at the Sentinel like that. This is a collection database for them to use, but not for private companies or law firms to use.
And what complaints get in there? You said BBB. What if someone complains to the AG or to a state? Does that make it into the Sentinel system?
Generally, it does.
Even if the state doesn't do anything about it, even if the AG doesn't come after you or anything, but the complaint gets logged in the system.
Correct. So that's why keeping complaints down is a. So I take a very liberal approach when dealing with Attorney General complaints. Maybe not BBB complaints, but with AG complaints, and obviously something from the FTC, which the FTC normally doesn't forward you consumer complaints. But an Attorney General's office will all the time. I'm very liberal in trying to aggressively resolve the AG complaints that I get, because I want to get those off the board as soon as possible.
But they're still in the Sentinel system, though, right? Even if you resolve it? Yeah. Okay. So the best action is to not create complaints whatsoever, which typically the number one contributing factor to that would be refunds, right? Liberal refund policy.
Well, liberal refund policy, I would actually take a step back and say that if your upfront marketing is meeting the expectations of, the actual fulfillment, so the client's expectations are being met by your product and offering, then you're not going to have complaints. Where I see most of the complaints that come in there, although you'll have crazy ones, I see them all the time. Like, I went to an event and I had cold coffee, or, those you can't ever avoid, but the AGs look at that. Even the FTC looks at that like, that's not. What they're looking at on complaints is, I was promised X, Y, and Z, and I was delivered B. And that wasn't even close to X, Y, and Z. And if you have a pattern of complaints that are showing consistently, this is what I was promised and this is what I was delivered, and it wasn't even close to the expectation, that's when the FTC starts taking notice. Now, I will say this. That's one way. It's not the only way. I have a client that was hit by the FTC that only had 2 complaints. So,
okay. So let's go through.
Right.
So I want to summarize that real quick, because this is something I want to harp on, because I didn't know about it. No one knows about this. There is a system called the Sentinel system. It tracks your complaints. The government has access to it. You do not. And so when you are getting a complaint submitted to the BBB, to the state attorney general, or to the FTC directly, it's all being consolidated in one place. Hey, Greg, is there any other source than the 3 that we just mentioned that gets into the Sentinel system, like Trustpilot or Google reviews, or any of those make it in there? So just the 3 we mentioned. Okay. Got it.
There may be some other regulatory organization like the FCC or the Consumer Financial Bureau, SEC. So there could be some other regulatory bodies that will feed complaints into that as well, that they'll kind of merge. So
wow. Okay. So guys, your BBB complaint. So here is the big misconception I had, as I thought that there has to be a volume of complaints submitted at the FTC about you or the business, and for the FTC to do something, and that is not the case. So you have to watch and monitor your BBB. In the end of this, like Greg said, just deliver exactly what you promised you would. If you're not able to, refund and refund liberally. There's a huge thing going on right now in the information marketing space. I'm seeing a trend of people getting harder and harder on their refund policies and not offering refunds. That is a mistake. That is a big, big, big mistake. Okay, so let's move on to number two. What is another way that you see people, that you see the FTC kind of finds their the people they want to go after?
Well, there's this case that just came out this week, this Weblio case that came out. Those individuals had already, two of the four individuals in that case had already been included in a prior, FTC action. And, once you're in an action, you think you're like, oh, I'm good to go. I can just say whatever I want and do something that's nefarious. And in this case, it's egregious. Like I looked through the complaint this week. I sent it to you too, but there are things like make $15,000 a day, make $65,000 a day, make $200,000 in 10 days. That was their success stories, but nobody was making money. So it was more like a MOB or digital altitude case, very similar. I'm going to teach you
It
to be
was
a
it was MLM as well, right?
yeah, it's kind of like that, right?
Yeah.
It's like a bastardized like MLM. It's like we're going to show you how to be an affiliate marketer, and you can be our affiliate marketer and sell for our products, right? That's
Oh,
what
okay.
that's
Okay,
kind
I
of like
got
what
it.
Moat did.
Well,
And
there's quite a few of those around though, where the main way you make money is to turn around and sell the thing that you bought. So
right, right. But in this, your question is two of these individuals had been hit by the FTC in the last 4 years. And so obviously they're tracking what you're doing because you have to do, when you file these settlements, you agree to let the FTC know for at least 10 years what you're doing. And if they're letting them know anything about it, then they're going to draw attention to that. And if they're not following the rules, most likely what happens first is they send an enforcement letter saying, hey, we think you're violating the rules. You better go back to your consent order. But my guess is they got that and they just went, and then they got blown up. So number
uh,
two way is you could be engaged in a prior regulatory action and just blow it off. And then they're looking at you already. You're right in the target and they're like, oh, what are you doing? So that's probably the second way I would say is that you've been engaged in a prior existing
okay.
some
Yeah.
relationship to another action.
What about because that's not going to be most people, right? So I mean that's
I would say number
yeah.
three. Let me get to number three. I know you're
Yeah.
getting there. I know you're getting there. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. Move faster.
So number three, I would say is that somebody else in your network or you are affiliated with or associated with is under investigation. And either they go through a full investigation, lawsuit, and settlement, or they do an investigation, and part of that's just an inquiry, trying to figure it out. So yesterday, I got forwarded a CID from not the FTC, but from a state, and they don't have any information. They just know that consumers are kind of there. There's a little bit of subheat on some couple complaints, but they've looked online and they don't like what they're seeing, and so they're doing a fishing expedition and they're sending out subpoenas to a whole bunch of different places to try to find out more about this. So whether or not, and I've received several CIDs about third-party companies where they're asking the FTC or other regulatory bodies are asking for information about third parties to find out more about them. And, a lot of times you maybe not be the target, but you'll get a CID and you'll have to respond. And then when you respond, it may be against the target company they're looking at, but they may ask you a whole bunch of other questions that opens up, well, what is this company over here doing that you're helping with? Because it's not the target company we're looking at, but we're concerned with what they're saying here too. And so, like, whether or not, and you'll know this when you sign when you do a CID and you sign a settlement agreement, you're saying you're going to cooperate. Not that you're turning it into a government narc, that's not it. But they ask you a whole bunch of information. And I would say a lot of CIDs, they're asking about your affiliates and the other companies as well. And that may draw attention to them, with the FTC or regulatory body, independent from what you're doing. And they may
Mhm.
like, oh, what's this company doing? I mean, that was the Mo case. I mean, they sued Mo, but they went after the main affiliates afterwards once they figured out what the affiliates were doing. So
Yeah.
they new complaint a year after that. And that's kind of been, I would say, since that Mo case, the FTC's gotten smarter. They just try to connect the dots among the parties that are interrelated. And I'm
Mm.
not saying you're in danger if you've done business with somebody that's got hit by the FTC, but I'm saying that they will look at the marketing actions of partnerships and affiliates. And if you're doing something that's non-compliant, they may start looking in your direction. So I would say the third way is in indirect investigation, like an investigation against another company, but then leads the commission or some regulatory body to look at what the activities of your company is doing because you are affiliated with them. And that's not to make people paranoid. I'm just saying if you're doing clean upfront advertising, you have nothing to worry about. Because if they look and it's okay, we don't love it, but we're not going to focus on it, you're fine. But if you don't care and you're just like, screw it, I'm just going to do whatever I want, then that's going to be a concern.
Got it. All right. So far, we've talked about the Sentinel system, which is complaint driven. So I know that there's going to be people that are saying, "Well, I don't have a lot of complaints." Okay. The second is, hey, if you are someone who's been hit by the FTC, or if you're doing business, if you have a business partner that's been hit with the FTC, then there's going to be extra eyes on you. And I think that's just common sense. Like for example, me right now, I just got done settling with the FTC a few months ago. It's just common sense. I get it. Right? I have to be extra careful. Which actually, in a weird way, so I was talking to someone and I said, hey, and you know this person is a mutual friend of ours. And I was like, hey, would you be willing to promote this offer for me? And I was like, I know you can say no, it's okay, like in case you're worried about it. And this person's reply to me was really interesting. They actually replied and said, Anik, I would actually prefer to promote your products over anything else right now because I know for a fact that you are going to make everything so damn compliant that it would be risk-free for me. And I was like, oh, wow, that's a really interesting, positive way of looking at it, which I am, by the way. We obsess over what we're saying right now. Now, I'm not saying I won't make mistakes. I will end up making mistakes, guys. So, I also know that everyone's like, every time I talk now, even in my Facebook group, I get people like, what about that? You said this. What about that? I'm like, great. Now I've got like 1,300 FTC attorneys chasing after everything I'm saying. But I'm obviously being very, very, very careful. We're going to have an episode in the future where we're going to talk about something called net impression. Guys, that's the number one guideline I'm using now when I write copy or write anything. Instead of getting lost in all the specific rules, which are important and I know them, there's a better rule to follow, which is just net impression. All right, the third way you said was if your name pops up in somebody else's investigation and they start to dig. So I can talk to this. In my investigation, when they first reached out, they wanted a bunch of stuff. I mean, we got, I don't know, 40, 50 pages and it was tons of things. I wanted it in 2 weeks. And I was like, right? So, of course, they were very amicable about the fact that we wanted an extension. And I find out that they're not always like that, as Greg, even in certain cases, right? So they were with mine. But there were two things that they said we must have right away. And I found it very intriguing because they were very specific requests. One was merchant accounting records and all communications with merchant accounts. My guess is they were trying to see if we're gamifying merchant processing, if we have a lot of chargebacks, which we didn't, thank God. Had the same merchant accounts for 15 years. The second thing is exactly where Greg was going. The second thing they wanted was a list of all of our top paid experts, affiliates, and partners. And my guess is because they wanted to figure out and they wanted to go look to see if there was anyone else. So it's important. And so, guys, you do need to be careful who you're doing business with. If you see someone that's doing stuff that you don't stand by, just know it's not their problem. It could be your problem as well. So you got to be careful. All right, what's a fourth way? So Greg, a lot of times we hear normal businesses, right? Small businesses. I hear this every day. Oh, I'm too small to matter. Like, I'm too small. The FTC is not going to come after me. But if you are small, you probably don't have enough complaints lodged yet. You've probably not done enough business with other people. You've not been hit by the FTC before. Yet we see cases, you see cases all the time that are fines are 30 grand, 40 grand, 50 grand. They are going after small businesses. So what's a number 4 way that someone, like the common person so far who's been saying, well, I'm not doing any of those, could still technically, be under the risk of being seen by the FTC?
Well, your two things you got to worry about. It's not just the Federal Trade Commission, but if you're in violation of state laws, you could have an investigation by your Attorney General's office in the state where you reside. And, I've got a client that's under investigation right now, and I think they generated, I don't know, $1 million last year, and they're dealing with a regulatory body in the state that they
Wow.
live in. And so just the attorney's fees and the time and pressure on that alone, it's probably going to be $100,000 settlement plus, for $1 million they generated. And I know what the take home on what that was, and generally in their industry, the type of marketing practices they had, their margins are about 20%. So you make 200,000, you have to pay $100,000 to the government, and then attorney's fees and costs, you're break even, right? And I mean, you spend a year of your life not making money. So it doesn't matter size wise on that. Now with the FTC, have I seen small cases? Sure. I had a case, the Visionary Solutions case several years ago, and I think they made $8 million in 6, 7, 8 years of business, and the FTC came after them. I don't know of only a couple of complaints in that case. My guess in that complaint actually is horrible. I think they marketed to somebody at the commission, and that's how they
Okay.
got on the radar. So I mean that's kind of the fourth way, right? You just bad luck. You draw attention early on to somebody who goes, like the state of Utah, for example, they're being proactive. They're going online and searching on Google searches and businesses doing, business in their state. And they're not waiting for complaints. They're just proactively trying to figure that out. I know because I've spoken to them several times. There's a marketing campaign here. I mean, there are billboards and commercials about it that, hey, they're going to be aggressive against companies that do business in Utah. So it could just be a proactive there. And there are states that have proactive, attorney generals or consumer protection divisions. And you may not have complaints, you may not have chargebacks, you may not have all the other indicators, BBB complaints, or things out there. It could just be you've drawn attention because your marketing is so aggressive, even if you don't think that you're huge because you're generating under $1 million in revenue. They'll look at you and then they'll bring in action. And they're indiscriminate about size. Now, obviously, the one thing I will say about that, the larger you are, the more online presence you have because you're paying for marketing dollars, the more attention you're going to get. But that doesn't mean that if you're small and they see it, they won't go after you, because they will.
Hmm.
So I think that's a false sense of security to think I'm little, I can go and do whatever I want, and they're going to go and hit the big guys. Now that's not the case. I mean, for you, they know they can roll over you. Like this Weeblo case or Weblio case that's out there. I think they generated a couple $1 million over the last couple of years, is what the FTC said in their complaint. If you're listening to this today and you're going to generate a couple $1 million over the last couple of years, I mean they got a full asset freeze in that case. That's not big time. That's not billions of dollars. That's you know
Yeah, that was what really got me was, and I don't think people understand that. And again, on the next episode, we're going to talk about how things have changed in the 2021 Supreme Court. So go for episode 3. It's going to be fascinating because the FTC's ability to freeze your assets versus not freeze them made a big shift and change in 2021. But in this particular case, the Weblio case, which is from the industry of business opportunity, it's not a very big company. They got a full-blown asset freeze. I mean, right out the gate. And that stuff is scary, guys. That means you wake up one morning and none of your money or assets are yours anymore. None of them. All accounts shut down. Now, thank God. I'm saying this right now and I want to throw up. Like, that the thought of that happening did not happen with me. Thankfully, I think if my case was a few years ago, it could have. Probably would have. And again, my blood pressure is going up right now. Just think about, can you imagine, like, you work 20 years of your life, and it's in the books and the guidelines, and I'm not judging them for it. The rules are the rules. So if you want to change them, go vote for the right change. But so number 4, Greg, what I'm hearing from you is just like, look, if you say stuff, do stuff that's not compliant, that's not good, then someone at the FTC clicks, doop, they see something they don't like, they can very easily grab that. So when they go up their higher ups at the FTC to get a complaint or to investigate or to go further after you, it's not like there is a definitive rule somewhere at the higher ups that say, well, we must see at least 20 complaints against XYZ company. They don't like it, they don't like it.
Yeah, I said as a judge in 4 cities in Utah, and the cases I hear can be multi-million-dollar cases down to like a couple $100 worth of fines. The application of the law has to be indiscriminate, regardless. So I had a major home builder in front of me in one of the court cases just about 2 weeks ago, and he sat there smugly and he was all pissed off because I was applying what the law in the city where he was doing business was to him. And I said the same thing to him I'm saying to everybody here today. The law is indiscriminate, or should be. We'll argue social injustices across the board, but in my court, it's indiscriminate, because I don't care if you're a multi-million-dollar home builder or you're just an average Joe that owns a business in the city where I sit as a judge. I'm going to apply the law the same. And the same thing's true of this. If you're violating marketing practices, whether you're generating $200,000 or $400 million, you're still in violation. It's still a violation, and it still opens it up. You may say, well, I'm smaller risk. Well, maybe the potential damages are smaller because you haven't generated as much income in the process, but it's still there. And maybe your settlement's less. But as you will testify, as we've talked a lot of times, like, yeah, the monetary judgment sucks, but the process is worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Greg, anything else we've missed? I mean, is there another, does the FTC, okay, so this is another common myth. So let me ask you about this. People will be like, oh, I'm short. And I went through this. So when I first got the notice, I immediately started thinking, who ratted on me?
Yeah.
I mean, it literally was the first question that came to my mind. So I'm like, oh, it could be that one person that's upset with me. And then I pointed, I'm like, oh, there was this one company trying to buy me out, and I said no at the last minute. Did they get pissed and rat me out to the FTC? And I've joked with you before. I'm like, do they have a referral program? Because I got some names that need to be thrown their way. Do they work like that? Like, because they're pretty easy to reach. I mean, the phone numbers of these different attorneys, their email addresses are out there. Can someone just be like, blah 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 blah? Here's a link. Go check it out. Like, is that possible? Have you heard of a case ever? Or have you?
I haven't heard of it. It's not beyond the possibilities of what I've seen with this.
Got
I mean,
it.
I've seen bad luck where a marketer hits some elderly person whose child works at the FTC, like
Yeah.
that's worse, because then all of a sudden you have like this vindictive, like somebody sold my mom who's 86 something, and I'm not with the FTC, I lose my gosh darn mind. I'd go after that company, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes it's just really bad luck. But again, if you're marketing
Just do it.
good, yeah,
Yeah,
just
just
do it right.
do it right. Do it right. Yeah. I think the big thing that I wanted to highlight in this episode was a lot of people think that either they're A, too small, or B, that there has to be a volume of complaints. That's what I thought. For the longest time, that's the advice I was given, is that there has to be a massive volume of complaints against you for you to come under the light. Now, here's the thing, guys. Of course, the bigger you are, the more you're out there, the more eyeballs you're attracting. So in my case, I was partnered with some of the biggest celebrities. I was doing a great job at marketing. I was bringing in eyeballs like crazy. And when you transact 63,000 transactions and get 20 or 30 BBB complaints a year, it's going to happen. I don't even know I don't know a company out there that doesn't have some complaints. The problem is this: the complaints will come. So as you get bigger, complaints will come, whether you do good or bad or whatever. It just does, because people, right? But if your marketing is compliant, and then even if those eyes get drawn towards you, they'll move on because you're doing it right. So everything I do, I'm like, all right. And then the other thing I want to say to people, because I'm getting this all the time right now from people that are like, well, I'll worry about it later. And I'm like, I'll tell you right now, it is so difficult to undo those habits. And when you've built your business on certain methodologies of marketing, you've attracted a certain type of list, a certain type of customer. To undo that means you are going to have to shut down, rebuild. So if you take your current methodologies up to $3, $4, $5, $6, $7, $8 million a year, at which point you think you should be concerned about the FTC or other state regulatory bodies, and now you decide to get compliant, it doesn't work that way. It's not the Indiana Jones where you just swap out the sand for the treasure. It doesn't work that way. You have to rebuild and that's recalibration is a tough process. Take it from a guy who's going through it, who did it. It's not instant. And so you're better off doing it now. Take an extra few months to really perfect that now, and then just build off of that legacy. Because the other thing I want to tell you is you could do uncompliant marketing now, and then God forbid you actually do exactly what I said. You trade the sand for the treasure. Boom. September 2024, you make that switch. Well, guess what? They go back up to 3 years. So you are liable for 3 more years of stuff you said 3 years ago. So they could still, come and hold you responsible. So you need to change today. Greg, what do you say? You probably get this all the time. What do you say to people that are like, it's later? Later is right for me.
I think it's naive. It's like being an ostrich, sticking your head in the stand. It's like I'll handle it when it happens, or I'll deal with it then. I think the irony of two things, like I always get and you can probably got this too, like, hey, Anik, I'm not worried about this because I do it right. I'm not like those guys.
Oh,
I take care of my clients, and we
I
do
was
good,
that person, Greg.
right?
I said that. I mean, and I believed it.
And so the irony in some of that, I think you did a pretty good job. I mean, I've looked at your stuff, right? But let's just say this. The irony of most people is that one, their marketing is creating a disconnect from what they're actually providing the customer. So they're not really taking care of the client, and they're not willing to change that marketing. So what they're saying is, I don't care that my clients are a little bit deceived. I value my client, I take care of them, but I don't mind that I'm misleading them, knowing that, oh, most of my clients don't make $10,000 in the first 10 months, but I'm going to keep on saying that. And oh, I love my clients and I'm going to service them. So there is a disconnect there, right? And number two is you got to understand this. You know what I'm saying, right?
I
Like,
feel attacked, dude. When you say
no,
it like
I'm
that,
not
it's so
saying it's not
dirty.
personal.
Ah,
It's
when you
me,
say
it's
it
not
like that,
you.
it's.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with you, but but see, that's how they look at it. That's
That's how
how
they
they
look
hear it.
at it.
That's
Yeah.
how they hear it. And it's it's not wrong. It's not wrong. I think the reason I'm freaking out right now is like, yeah, just because you take care of your customer doesn't mean you can say whatever the hell you want on the other side.
No, because the
Um,
FTC looks at it, the reason with the complaints and why they don't look at the volume of complaints solely is because, and you know this from the investigation, and I know it from other cases, they look at complaints as the tip of the iceberg. That you get the people who complain are just the little bit that sticks out of the water when there's this big mammoth berg that's under the ocean that's ready to sink your ship. So when they bring a lawsuit or an investigation, they're like, okay, we got some complaints, but they're looking at the type of complaints you're getting because they think in their mind a majority of your clients are not satisfied. And then when they step in, they have like an Ivy Capital case where they request, show us one testimonial success story, and they can't do it. That's what they think. They think nobody's having success. And now I know the marketers out there listening to this and they're like, well, I have clients that has been successful, but are a majority of your clients successful? Is it a success rate that you would be like proud about? Like, oh my gosh, 50% or more of my clients. And I'm not saying that's the test, but I'm saying,
yeah.
hey, if I were successful, like I do a fulfillment business on things, we do estate planning and other things too. But if I only was satisfying 50% of my clients, I feel like I would be failing. Like if only 50% of my clients were getting the product that I said I was providing, I would feel like it was failing.
All right,
So
fine.
anyway, you see
I
what I'm
have to
saying?
make the argument.
My
So
soapbox.
our podcast is subtitled "Marketer Meets Lawyer." So here we go. I'm gonna go in. What are we supposed to do, Greg? What are we supposed to do when like 90%, 95% of the people that buy, like you've bought books. Come on, I see books behind you, and I know you've bought books that you've never read. I've bought many books at the airports I've never read. We don't hold those authors responsible or those publishing houses responsible for an incompleted book. That's what a lot of marketers, that's what a lot of us information marketers think. We say, like, I want to hear your perspective of how the commission and other regulatory bodies hear that is, I don't have control over the fact that I'm like such a large percentage of my customers don't even go through the material, and then the ones who do don't even try, so they're so they're not having success because of them, not because of me. And now this isn't me talking. So if someone
But
from the
that,
regulatory bodies is watching, I'm just playing out what the marketer says. So respond.
yeah, but you got to understand the messaging in which you're presenting to the client is seminal. Like if marketers would own what they actually provide the clients and they would be transparent to what they're actually receiving, then you'd understand, right? You'd understand what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
if the message was, hey, we're going to show you how to become a real estate investor, for example. And the messaging at front was, we're going to teach you the steps necessary to become a real estate investor. And here are the books and everything else. So you understand what you're actually getting is a course on how to become a real estate investor versus come into our door and we're going to show you how you're going to make $30,000 within the first months of real estate investing. The
Yeah.
difference, and we'll talk about this in your net impression thing, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
difference in that is okay, we can say, what do you take ownership in? Because if it's the first and only 10 to 15% of them actually become and learn how to do real estate investing because they actually go through the courses, okay,
Mm.
it's on them. Versus you get people who come in because they see $30,000 to $60,000 in 6 months and then they don't get it, then it's on you because
Look,
that's the impression you're setting.
all right, makes sense. Thank you for putting it that way because it makes sense. So basically, don't sell the outcome. Sell, like, so when you go to, yeah, when you go to a restaurant, you buy a pizza. They don't come and say you'll be full to the blah 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 and you'll have the most epic experience meal. It'll be the best. Like they just say, you say I'll take a pepperoni pizza, and they're like, all right, here's your damn pizza, right? So like for example, this book, the difference between a book and the way marketers are doing courses, this book is like, hey, you'll get a book that teaches you how to stay compliant in your advertising. We didn't say, hey, get this book and you're guaranteed to never get sued by any regulatory body in the world ever, and you can do whatever the hell you want after you get this book. So that's like the difference. And I bet if books started being sold that way too, it'd be a problem. Like it would be an issue. Makes sense, man. I mean, to me, it makes perfect sense now on the other side. I just try to play devil's advocate because I know that marketers hear this stuff and think, well, I don't have control over what they do and say. But all of this for yet another episode, another time, we will talk about. One of my questions I want to ask is, well, what the hell is a typical result? And how do I determine what I can say as to the typical result of my. But that's another episode, another day. For now, guys, I thought my biggest takeaway was a Sentinel system. So, Greg, let's give everyone a wrap-up takeaway. So I'm your client. We just got done doing this. I'm walking away. What do you suggest? Should I go look at my BBB, go look at my reputation management, see what's out there on Trustpilot, check my chargebacks, refund rates? Like, give me a little bit of a checklist so someone can get a gauge today of where they are. Forget the marketing side. So number 4 was what we're going to devote our entire lives to here. So they have to learn how to market they can check to see if they're doing business with anyone. So check your partners, check the people that you're affiliates for. Are they violating rules? So you might not be big enough.
Absolutely, absolutely. We didn't talk
Yeah.
enough about that. But if you're at the back end of upfront lead gen that's just saying whatever the hell they want to online, absolutely be
Yeah.
concerned about that because they will
So
go like this to all of you.
so here's what's interesting for me, and I want to try to continue finding ways to get people that say I'm too small to counter that belief is you might be in your mind too small, but the company that you are promoting might be very big. So the chances of them coming under the oversight of the FTC, and then you're going to just get dragged into it because, well, you made money from it too. So the complaint one is the interesting one. Since we don't have access to Sentinel, Greg, or number 2 was, hey, if you've already been hit by the FTC, please, for crying out loud, like clean up your shit. That just seems like an obvious, but apparently it isn't. Number 1 was Sentinel system. How do I get a gauge of what the hell is in there? I mean, I know I can't see what's in there, but what can I do best? What do you do for a client best to understand what kind of complaints might be out there?
Here's what I always tell clients, and some clients are like, I don't even look at my BB complaints because I don't want to get depressed, or I just think they're poo, right? Yeah, I know that's right. I just don't believe them, and so I don't believe in the BBB, so I don't look at them. So,
Uh,
so right. I mean, it's
feel
kind of
attacked again.
right. And so I'm like, oh man, like here's what I do. I like to look at all the complaints that come in and see what if there's a consistency in what's happening. If I consistently see that people are complaining about the same issue, what I would do internally first, before anything else, before this becomes a regulatory issue, I would take a look at the man in the mirror, to quote the Michael Jackson song. I would look and see what is going on with the organization, why there's a disconnect from what the clients are saying. And if we do the investigation and hey, I think we're doing fine, these clients have the issue, then that's fine. But if we look hard and we say, you know what, I can see why they're upset about this, let's fix it internally, then you're fixing problems and pivoting before it even becomes a regulatory issue. But if you see a pattern, especially what I've seen a lot lately with a lot of these automated, Amazon companies, they just stop fulfilling. And of course, you're going to get hit with something, whether it's a class action or regulatory issue, but it all comes to complaints, right? The fulfillment's a big piece of that. Refunds is a big piece of that. Just get rid of people who are just naysayers. Maybe there's no justification whatsoever to get rid of them or pay them off, but they're just like a thorn in your side, or they have some issue because they've got diagnosed with cancer 4 days after they bought your course, and you have no reason to give a refund. But you know what? Socially, probably the right thing to do, just to take care of things, take care
Yeah.
of things. Staying a pulse on what your complaints are and seeing if there's a disconnect helps your business. It just
Yeah.
does.
All right, so marketer meets lawyer. Let me give you guys my perspective, having been through the investigation. Here's what I would do if I was you. If you want to get a good gauge of whether you are heading for the brick wall or not. Number one, I want you to do an audit of all the people you work with. Anyone you have promoted as an affiliate and any affiliate you have promoting you. It's important. I know it sucks. Number two, ask yourself, have you been hit by the state AG? Have you been hit by the FTC or any other regulatory body? I know of a few people, I'm not going to mention any names, that have been hit by body A and are now playing in a land that would violate rules for body B. And they somehow feel that it doesn't matter. And I'm just like waiting for that rod to come down. So, okay, number two, that's easy. Number three, let's go towards your marketing. Okay, great. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about clean up your marketing. It doesn't matter how big or small you are. We're doing a study right now, Greg. We're in the middle of a study that's going to take us another few weeks from the day that we're filming this episode, where I think we have 500 random sites that we grabbed. And so our team's doing the study, and then Greg's team is going to go commission it, kind of like finalize it and sign off on it. We are finding, and so far, early days, and I want to give it is a massive majority. I mean, a shocking majority of the sites that we've grabbed. And they're all random. We're grabbing random places, random sites, random marketing messages. They're violating some key rule. Not just anything, but a key rule. And so you've got to clean up your advertising. Now, on the last piece, which is the first piece that Greg talked about, your complaints. Go to BBB. Check what your company, check what people have said. Make sure they're all addressed, they're all replied to, see what the hell's going on and minimize those complaints. We were getting about, you can't see it now because after the FTC case, the BBB took our stuff down, but we were getting about 20 complaints a year on the BBB. Now remember, we were also doing 20,000 transactions a year. So as far as I was concerned, I was like, we're killing it, right? But if that was how we got under the, I don't know, but check your complaints, take them all damn seriously, and make sure that you do whatever you need to do to get rid of them. Meaning they don't happen in the future. Here's another really great tip. Look, they asked us for this. They audited this in our company. All right, thank God we did well with this. But then I was the first time I audited it because they asked for it. I went and looked at it, and I wasn't too happy with it. So I was like, we could do better. We did okay. We could do better. Check your refund replies. So they wanted us to pull every refund request that we've ever had and then every reply that we gave to those requests. You do that right now internally in your company and read them. Read them and you'll be read them. Number three, chargeback notices. How many chargebacks? Go read them. Go see how many you have. And just because you win the chargeback doesn't matter. Actually, it might hurt you if you're very aggressive at fighting chargebacks. They don't love that. A chargeback's a chargeback, whether you win it or not, it counts against you. So if you want an audit of what's going on in your company right now from a complaint side, check Trustpilot, check Google reviews, check BBB, take them all seriously. Go do an audit of every refund request you had. Read the responses your team has given to them. You yourself will get a gauge and then put the common sense hat on and fix it. Fix it ASAP. That's my message. Greg, I know that you got a lot of lawyering to go off and do, so we're going to let you go. Thank you for this episode. I think the common theme here was just fix your shit. Otherwise, you are potentially a candidate for going through the hell that I went through, so don't do it. All right. Greg, thanks everyone. GuardianLaw.com if you want to get a hold of this good-looking Santa-looking guy to have represent you. I don't know what this is, a new thing. He didn't have this when he was representing me. I think I stressed him out so much. He grew a beard now. And then don'tsaythat.com. What's that?
I had dark hair too. Now it's all
dark hair too. He's like, me too. By the way, a side gift left to me by our regulators in DC is freaking white hair. So thank you for that. That's probably the part that I'm the most upset about. You take my money, you can take my pride, you take my reputation, but don't take my hair. All right. And then don'tsaythat.com, guys. Podcast, book, courses, academies, so much stuff coming out. We're so excited to be able to help you. If any of us can help you, reach out to us. This is not unfortunately, but ironically now my new passion. So looking forward to it, everyone. Thank you. And as I always say, when life pushes you, stand straight, smile, and push it the heck back. Greg, thank you very much as always, my friend.
Thanks.